Newegg, the online retailer once celebrated for its tech offerings, is now fighting for survival due to allegations and controversies. Newegg used to be the go-to place for gamers, but now gamers avoid Newegg like the plague. How does a company lose 99% of its value despite its massive appeal and user-friendly platform? From its humble beginnings to becoming a household name, Newegg's journey is nothing short of revolutionary. In this video, we will explore the incredible story of Newegg from startup to sensation, from CPUs to customer satisfaction, and from billions to bankruptcy. But why was Newegg beloved in the first place? When Fred Chang created the company in 2001, he sought a name that symbolized hope and a new beginning for e-commerce, an industry struggling after the dot-com crash. So he chose Newegg, and the name was prophetic. Newegg was one of the first to take off in the gaming retail market. By 2005, Newegg had surpassed $1 billion in annual sales, but Newegg wasn't alone. Many companies were selling tech supplies and PC parts. So why were customers so loyal to Newegg? For starters, their prices were often the best you could find, consistently beating out Best Buy and other giant retailers. But good pricing was just the beginning. In the 2000s, finding the right PC part on Amazon was aggravating, but Newegg's interface was tailor-made for tech enthusiasts. Newegg's shopping process was seamless. You could sort by generation and component and find exactly what you needed. Newegg would even tell you if your PC components were compatible with each other. This is common today, but in the 2000s, it was groundbreaking, and customers loved it. Shopping for electronics on Amazon is frustrating and time-consuming. Newegg has extremely powerful search tools optimized for electronics and computer parts. 10 years ago, Newegg had everything easy to find on their site. They had great deals, friendly in-house support, and it was as close as one could get to a one-stop shop for computer hardware. From 2016, this last comment also hints at the third thing Newegg did well. Their customer service was exceptional. Shipping was always fast and returns were hassle-free. Gamers shopped at Newegg because it was built for them. It served tech customers better than Amazon or any other retail giant could. Newegg was clearly the dominant player, but since then, things have turned for the worse. If you visit their website today, things might seem fine, but zooming out to the bigger picture tells us a different story. Since their IPO in 2012, their stock price has crashed from $99 to below 90 cents, a drop of over 99%. On websites like Glassdoor, Newegg sits at a 2.3 star rating from over 600 reviews. Past employees cite terrible, incompetent management, high risks of layoffs, high stress, and lower salaries than competitors. Even loyal employees share these troubles. In terms of positives, reviewers say there are really none, except some of the people there are great, and lots of great people and coworkers who will share your plight and agony. Not a good look. But putting their stock and management issues aside, the most important question to ask is regarding their financials. Is the company making money? Well, up until 2019, they were a money-burning startup. But afterward, they started to make good profits, surpassing $30 million in 2020 and $36 million in 2021. This was likely due to the pandemic, but they were nonetheless on an upward trajectory. But then, things took a worse turn. Newegg started losing money again. But this was different. These losses were big and sudden. In 2022, they recorded a net loss of $57 million. In 2023, their net loss grew to $59 million. But that's not even the full picture. Looking deeper, in 2023, their total assets are $499 million, and their total debt is $369.66 million. This gives Newegg a debt-to-asset ratio of 0.74. For reference, a healthy company is around 0.4, meaning that Newegg is in a risky position. They carry a large proportion of debt, and their assets seem to be shrinking faster than their debt. As such, MacroAxis gives them a 35% chance of going bankrupt within the next 2 years. What's so fascinating is that things were very different just a few years ago. So why did their profits go into free fall just 1 year later? What happened? For the past decade, a storm was slowly brewing. Negative comments about Newegg started to pop up here and there. People began reporting strange support experiences, most of which had a consistent theme. One customer purchased 2 motherboards and received a faulty one, and another in poor condition. But when they began the return process, their refunds were denied, with Newegg citing customer-caused damage to CPU pins before sending the motherboards back to the customer. The only issue is that these pins were perfectly fine when the customer sent in the motherboards. Now, of course, even the best retailers can't get 100% customer satisfaction, but this was different. Newegg was denying returns on products they had seemingly damaged themselves. This story wasn't out of the ordinary either. Customers began compiling and sharing negative reviews of terrible customer support with similar themes. I spent close to $2,000 with them to build a system for a client. Never worked. Determined it was a bad stick of RAM. I specifically mentioned the damage to the rep on the phone. Was told it would be no problem. Sent back, and they denied the return. Told me that they do not accept damaged returns. It arrived damaged. But Newegg didn't change, perhaps because of incompetence, but maybe for another reason. In their eyes, they didn't need to. They hold all the cards in this situation, and there's absolutely nothing I can do. But everything was about to change for Newegg. One incident would catapult this negligence into the spotlight, which brings us back to 2022 when they stumbled onto one customer who would level the playing field. In 2022, the YouTube channel Gamers Nexus returned an unused motherboard, which fell within Newegg's 30-day return policy, and Newegg's customer support reared its ugly head once again. Newegg denied the return and cited customer damage, just like all the other complaints. But the thing was, Steve, the face of Gamers Nexus, never opened the box, which meant the product was damaged when Newegg sent it, or worse. This was the pebble that caused the avalanche. In a video that to date has over 1.5 million views, Gamers Nexus showed the aggravating customer support. But it gets even worse. In a follow-up video, Steve opened the returned motherboard and dug deeper. The return history showed that this was a faulty item sent to a supplier for a repair quote, only for it to be sold back to consumers. The snowball was now in motion. Customers began to weigh in with their own experiences, eerily similar to Steve's. They were finally getting a platform to share their voices, and not just regular consumers either. Other YouTubers began sharing their terrible Newegg stories. Then other YouTube channels and commentators all began to report on the story. Everyone was looking at Newegg, and they went into panic mode. So they released a statement on Twitter. A very small number of returns may not have been thoroughly inspected, and these were unintentional process errors and isolated incidents. This only added fuel to the fire because these weren't isolated incidents. There was a pattern across all the returns, one that everyone could see. Newegg reached out to the impacted customers, including Gamers Nexus and UFT Tech, but ironically, this reveals one of the biggest issues with Newegg. Throughout the past decade, most customers would only get their issues resolved and their money back if they made enough noise. This wasn't Newegg changing. It was just damage control. Newegg only began to resolve the issues with Gamers Nexus and UFT Tech after they made public statements. They're not sorry for what happened. They're sorry they got caught and exposed. Newegg's fall came down to one thing. Newegg wasn't proactive. They were reactive. They only appeared to make things right when under the spotlight. And even then, people aren't so sure. During the peak of the drama, Newegg's leadership agreed to meet Gamers Nexus in person. While a great gesture, most of the conversation had heavy corporate speak, with little promise of real change. But things aren't so simple. It's hard to blame leadership because the turnover is so high. Most of the executives had only been with the company for a matter of months, and it appears this trend of poor retention hasn't improved much either. And that brings us back to Newegg today. Has their reputation improved at all? With Newegg's declining sales, the repeat purchase rate decreased from 31.3% to 29.2%. The average order value declined from $411 to $379, which tells us one thing: customers aren't coming back. They don't trust Newegg with important purchases anymore. Motherboards, graphics cards, CPUs, all of which are fragile and expensive and often well over $379. The saddest part is that customers want Newegg to succeed. So, can Newegg bounce back? Well, in their 2023 investor report, they outlined the reasons for this decline in business, which included conservative consumer spending in technology products, as well as lower profit margins and higher costs. While these factors are likely true, all of it dances around the most important issue. Somewhere along the road, Newegg neglected the most important thing: customers. Customer support is the backbone of these companies. It can turn an annoyed customer into a brand advocate, but it can also turn customers into brand detractors, publicly shaming and advocating for others to avoid them. The controversy and bad publicity are because of Newegg's negligence, apathy, and bad management. A decade of it at that. Despite this, Newegg,